AI companies continue to attract investors and reach out to more customers. Evidence emerges that companies are listening to us through our smartphones, and political advertisements may end up invading streaming services. We're going to talk about those stories and more on our weekly tech news roundup on Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. The guy behind the big monitors is Chris. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. And joining us as guest co-host once again from San Francisco is Brandon Maney. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Glasshouse and the owner of Mangrove Collective. Hello, Brandon.
Hey, gents.
I feel like you are our Today in Tech West Coast correspondent. That's how you've elevated your game so much in your second go around. So
things lean more towards San Francisco when I'm on.
There you go. Although you mentioned to me before the show that it's summer in San Francisco, so you have your summer shirt on today.
That's right. I'm sun's out, guns out.
There you go. All right. First topic that we want to talk about, there was a bunch of news around AI companies that continue to attract money and more competition coming for the world of OpenAI. So the first one was that OpenAI co-founder Ilya Sutskever, I probably butchered that name, basically announced his new company. It's called Safe Superintelligence, SSI. Basically, he was the former chief scientist. He was involved in the big news. What was it, 6 or 7 months ago, right around Thanksgiving, right, where they dumped Sam Altman for a week, and then he helped bring him back, but then the board said, well, you're gone too. But he's now raised $1 billion in cash to help develop safe artificial intelligence systems that far surpass human capabilities, company executives told Reuters. SSI, which currently has 10 employees, plans to use the funds to acquire computing power and hire top talent. It will focus on building a small, highly trusted team of researchers and engineers split between Palo Alto, California, and Tel Aviv, Israel. The company declined to share its valuation, but sources close to the matter said it was valued at $5 billion. I mean, this is amazing for a company that just announced kind of like they haven't even put out a product yet.
I mean, you only have 10 employees.
10 employees and you've raised $1 billion. Like the temptation there just to like spend lavishly is huge, but I'm sure that they're not going to do that. Obviously you've got to focus on hardware and software to make sure that you can run whatever AI you're gonna do. And the funding underlines how some investors are still willing to make outsized bets on exceptional talent focused on foundational AI research. That is despite a general waning interest towards funding such companies, which can be unprofitable for some time and which has caused several startup founders to leave their posts for tech giants. Investors in this new company include venture capital firms Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia Capital, DST Global, and SV Angel. NFDG, an investment partnership run by Nat Friedman, and SSI's chief executive Daniel Gross also participated. Quote, it's important for us to be surrounded by investors who understand, respect, and support our mission, which is to make a straight shot to safe superintelligence and in particular spend a couple of years doing R&D on our product before bringing it to market. So it looks like also that this product is not going to be coming out very soon. But there's also, the longer, if you go to the link, you just check our show notes, it also has a long story, like the rest of the story also details a lot of the issues for this co-founder and what he went through after they got rid of, or after the whole Sam Altman thing. So it is a fascinating read on that. So I don't know if they're going to directly compete with OpenAI, but it would be interesting to see what they see as safe versus what OpenAI has with its kind of going after money. So that seems to be like this philosophical debate between those two people, right?
I think it's just hilarious. Like the idea that they call this like safe superintelligence. It's like when you go to a restaurant and your kids get the crayons to color, it says like non-toxic crayons. Who's making toxic crayons? Like what? It just makes you think, what are the other people doing? Like it's such a jab at OpenAI.
Oh yeah. It's definitely, you didn't have to have the word safe in there, but obviously like we're the, it's almost like, there was this Onion joke a long time ago, where, the snack food Funyuns. And so they did an Onion story where it was called, responsibility uns not selling as much as Funyuns. So it's almost like this guy could have named the concept, his company Responsible AI, or
The not Cyberdyne company. Like, I don't know what else you call it.
Cyberdyne Industries, right? Like, So, and again, I get the idea. Obviously when ChatGPT and OpenAI came out a couple of years ago, there was this big rush of people looking at the technology and going, "Oh my gosh, AI is going to take over the world." And we haven't really seen that as much. That I don't know if it was fear mongering or if that was our first instinct. The funny part is I always knew that businesses were going to find a way to screw it up and make AI as boring as possible. And Microsoft has done that. I mean, the Copilot stuff alone, it just seems like companies are throwing stuff against the wall. And the answers we get are either made up sometimes or the text that they write is boring as heck. And there hasn't been this. And all of the companies are just going after chatbots that are the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure if I've done any chatbot discussions on companies' customer services yet.
There's still
because I still avoid those like the plague. Like, you go to a site and that little window pops up and he's like, "Hey, would you like to talk to someone about it?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I want to talk to a human."
There's still biases too,
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you heard of the Amazon Echo stories.
Yeah. Did you
It's
see
a little political, but
did you see this, Brandon? Where someone was filming it, and again, this was discussing what
basically
Amazon
everybody
was doing.
Yeah, everybody with Amazon Echo was doing it.
Yeah, and so they filmed a video where they asked Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump? And it came up with that standard answer of, "Oh, I can't give you recommendations because it's a political thing," or whatever. And then they asked the same question for Kamala Harris, and the response was completely different, and basically giving you, "Here's all of the reasons why you should vote for Kamala Harris." So, these guardrails that apparently have been set up on one side of the aisle were not set up for the other side of the aisle, and that's why it's going viral.
Yeah, and of course, it was an error. So
right.
They apologized for it and fixed it, of course.
Right. But that's almost like with any guardrails. Like, any guardrails get put up after the accident, right? Like,
Yeah.
Unless you know that curve that you're building on the road is going to be dangerous. But sometimes they don't put up the guardrails on a highway until someone's had a bad accident there. So that's kind of the equivalent here. All right. So moving on to the second story. The other competitor for OpenAI, Amazon-backed Anthropic, has rolled out Claude AI for big businesses. This week, they rolled out Claude Enterprise, its biggest new product since the chatbot's debut, designed for businesses looking to integrate Anthropic's artificial intelligence. The Amazon-backed AI startup, founded by former OpenAI research executives, is the company behind Claude, one of the chatbots that, like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Gemini, has exploded in popularity in recent years. Since Anthropic released the first version of Claude in March 2023 without any consumer access or major fanfare, it's become one of the hottest AI startups, with backers including Google, Salesforce, and Amazon, and a product that directly competes with ChatGPT on both the enterprise and consumer worlds. Since January, it has introduced iOS and Android apps, a team plan for businesses, and international expansion into Europe. I believe so. There was also a Computer World story on this as well, basically saying that they're going to be able to take a company's data and utilize a chatbot around that rather than doing a general GPT that could leak data. We've seen this in the enterprise space too, where people are going into retrieval augmented generation and using their own databases rather than the general data out there. So it's interesting to me is that there's now another enterprise option out there for companies exploring that. But there's also 20 to 30 other companies that will take your data too and make it into a GPT without necessarily going to that public area. So there was one interesting quote in here that I wanted to ask you about, with a product manager was talking to CNBC and said that we're moving to a world where these models will behave much more like virtual collaborators than virtual assistants. So I think we're going to start seeing moving away from that Clippy model. Remember, you remember the whole Microsoft Clippy thing, Brandon. So, and more into collaborators, but they don't exactly say what a collaborator means versus an assistant.
Well, so
Yeah.
more conversational than giving you a direct answer, right?
Or-
That's probably what they
Yeah,
mean.
rather than just question answer, which I think what these virtual assistants do, it might be, hey, give me some ideas, or think about what you want to do. You know, almost challenging the AI to come up with more imaginative responses. Maybe.
Yeah, sounds like they're trying to make it be more conversational, more open-ended, I should say. You know, open-ended answers maybe.
So, Brandon, I mean, do you see a difference between virtual collaborators and virtual assistants, or?
Yeah, I think that where we've come, an assistant in my mind is I tell it what to do and it gives me something back, where a collaborator is more open field, where I don't know where I'm going and they can help me land someplace that is yet to be discovered.
Right. And we've done a couple of interviews here on the show where people the guests are explained to me how they treat AI at the moment, and two different people have said they treat it like a summer intern.
Yep.
They give it an assignment, it comes back with an answer. So it feels like you're moving from the intern to now almost like a peer or a coworker. In working on a project that way. I would say show me the results of this to see if this actually happens, but because at the moment I still think everyone feels like AI is like the intern.
I think I use Claude, right? That's my go-to. And I asked it the other week, like, what's an electric vehicle that will fit into my garage that's 74 inches wide, which is like a San Francisco problem to have.
That sentence was completely San Francisco, Brandon.
and it sent me a list of like 6 SUVs that were only made in Europe, and like that's the assistant part. What it might say, in the future is, hey, why don't you get a bigger house? Here's Zillow and something you can find so you can actually get this car that you want. Like, that's what I would imagine, like some creative problem solving. It's the next step of what you don't necessarily see. Like, hey, you're trying to solve the wrong problem here.
Yeah. Although the idea of like that you would have to buy a house in the San Francisco market at this point would be insane. You would think that the AI would know that. I forgot to ask you, Brandon, what was the reason that you chose Claude? Because you had a lot of other options out there with ChatGPT and Google. What was it about Claude?
I think my last residency on this show, we were talking about Claude emerging, and I started to use it in comparison to ChatGPT. And it really came down to having newer data and being more conversational. It had, I think I asked it about the San Francisco Unified School District and how many days were left in school. And ChatGPT said, I don't know. And Claude gave me the right answer. And I sort of just stuck there.
Yeah.
Been using it a lot more.
Okay. What's interesting too is that OpenAI is eventually going to be putting out that Search GPT, which will make it more useful from a search perspective than what originally they had, which was never really about answers. I think it was more about the creativity aspect of it. So it should be interesting too. And now, speaking of OpenAI, like they also announced that they are discussing higher price subscriptions for upcoming large language models, such as its reasoning-focused Strawberry and a new flagship LLM dubbed Orion, and this is according to The Information, reported last week. In an early internal talks at OpenAI, subscription prices ranging up to $2,000 per month were discussed, the report said, citing one person with direct knowledge of the numbers. OpenAI did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. ChatGPT Plus currently costs $20 a month. The free tier of the model is used by hundreds of millions of users every month. But OpenAI, which is backed by Microsoft, is working on this project codenamed Strawberry with the aim to enable AI models to perform deep research. So Strawberry includes a specialized way of what is known as, quote, post-training OpenAI's generative AI models, or adapting the base models to hone their performance in specific ways after they have already been trained on reams of generalized data. I don't see me ever subscribing to the $2,000 a month thing. It does feel like that would be more for large enterprises and potential research-based foundations. I would hope that at some point, if they wanted to increase the price, maybe for their next model that isn't this focused. But if, you can't just go from 20 to 2,000. You'd have to have some other tiers, right?
I think so. I wonder, like, thinking back to the 90s and dial up to broadband and all of those technological advances, like maybe that's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
Are we not even going to realize what we're paying for it in the future because it just common space and you have to have it.
Oh, and what's weird is that when TVs went from regular definition to high definition, there was a price increase, but then so many people flocked to it that the prices did actually come down. And even though I pay for the $20 a month for ChatGPT, and sometimes I don't use the tool for weeks at a time, and then I remember because my bill shows up or the little transaction. I was like, oh, I should start using that more. And then I'm starting to treat them like streaming services, for example, like where I'm just going to hop on, hop off almost with depending on what I want to use it for. I was considering actually signing up for Grok, which is the Elon Musk X image generator. The one without any guardrails, just to see what it could come up with. But then also, again, I went on to Claude to try something and they're like, well, you can't really do anything unless you subscribe. There's a couple of those, going back to Midjourney and things like that for some of the image generation. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this $2,000 thing, maybe they're just floating a trial price to see if people would be interested or if there's going to be gigantic outrage. Kind of like what Apple did with the Vision Pro when they first started thinking about pricing around that. So, all right. But again, overall, with a lot of these three stories, you're seeing continued competition, new companies, new markets. So, which is weird because it's offset with some of the disillusionment that people are feeling about these initial waves of tools. So, it's always good when these companies do announce something that might get people excited again around AI and keeps content for us too. All right, so I want to jump to another non-AI related story. So this is in the topic of "I told you so," or all of my tinfoil hat conspiracy theories were right. A major marketing firm has admitted to listening to your phone conversations. Since the start of targeted advertising on websites and social media, there have been many theories circulating that claim smartphones and other gadgets, including tablets and laptops, actively listen to users' conversations in order to offer personalized ads. Now, a new report has validated these long-standing suspicions. According to 404 Media, Cox Media Group, a marketing firm whose clients include Facebook and Google, has privately admitted that it listens to users' smartphone microphones and then places ads based on the information that it's picked up. The television and radio news conglomerate admitted in a pitch deck to investors that its active listening software uses artificial intelligence to capture real-time intent data by listening to our conversations. Advertisers can pair this voice data with behavioral data to target in-market consumers, the company wrote in this pitch deck. Consumers leave a data trail based on their conversations and online behavior, and that AI-powered software collects and analyzes the behavioral and voice data from 470 plus sources. Now, Google removed this from this company, from its partners program website after it was contacted by 404 Media, when they were asked to comment on the matter. And this was just the statement from Google, which was like, all advertisers must comply with applicable laws and regulations, as well as our Google Ads policy. When we identify ads or advertisers that violate these policies, we will take appropriate action. Blah, 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 blah. On the show, maybe early in my run here on this Today in Tech, I think I brought up that I was having a conversation at work about wanting to buy some sneakers that looked like dress shoes. And it was just between me and a coworker. But then it turned out that I had my phone there. And I think I had with Facebook, it was actively listening to me because within a day I was started to get advertisements in Facebook for this company that does dress shoes that look like sneakers. Or sneakers that look like dress shoes. And even last week, I went to one of our local fairs, because in Labor Day weekend, they have fairs all around here in New England. And I went and I talked to a company about gutter replacement. And I signed up for something. And then within 3 days, in my Facebook feed, in Google Ads, somehow, I'm now getting gutter replacement, and I didn't click on anything, so I wouldn't be surprised if these people are still listening to me at some point. I've turned it off on Facebook, but I don't know what else is out there. It's just one of those things where you're like, they are listening to you at some point. Yeah, and it's all like and they've probably hidden it somewhere within those terms of service that nobody reads. that they are allowed to do this, and it just feels too invasive to me. And so I don't know. Do you have examples where this has happened to you, or or other general thoughts on this news?
Yeah, this is like news to nobody. I think everybody is the same way, whether you like a song in a car and you ask who it is, or, you're searching for something, or you say, hey, I need a new garden hose. Like all of a sudden it's listening and the ads start to show up. Some people would say, hey, that's really convenient. I'm glad. I'd rather have targeted ads versus, needing things that don't apply to me. But it's super creepy. Of course it's happening. Kick them out of the program. So what? I feel like Google is just sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that they've probably already gotten, if they're officially kicking them out, they've probably gotten as much as they could, or they've hidden it into that terms of service, so they're allowed to continue to do it. But every time I get an example of that, it freaks me out a little bit. I'm like, all right, now I got to go look through to see if I can opt out of something I was probably opted into in the first place. So. But you're right. It's not surprising. It is surprising when we actually get an admittance, or somebody actually says, "Oh yeah, that's been going on for years." And it's like, okay, well, can we stop it? I guess so. Click this box. Yeah. All right. Speaking of advertisements, that's our next story. This is just the bad news podcast this week. All right. So if you thought that you were cool by cutting the cord and doing all of these streaming services so that you could get away from broadcast political ads, we're all in on the election season right now. I got bad news for you. Consumers who cut their cable cord in recent years are finding that there's one thing about linear TV that they can't escape, which is political ads. With the U.S. presidential election less than 70 days away, campaigns are swarming streaming services like Roku and Hulu to such a degree that connected TVs are seeing more ad spending than internet platforms such as Facebook and Google. That's according to data provided to CNBC by political ad analytics firm Ad Impact, which started tracking the connected TV category in 2022. Ad Impact projected that the CTV market brought in about $236 million in ad sales related to the presidential race this year through August 23rd. The digital category brought in just under 235 million. So more money's going towards streaming services now. Ad Impact currently projects that the overall political ad spending for 2024 election cycle will be as high as $10.7 billion. Broadcast will account for roughly half, followed by CTV at around 14% and digital at close to 12%. That's really bad news because in theory too, the whole streaming ad service market, it sucks. And people know that it stinks. I mean, when all of these services, I used to buy a lot of ad-free revenue, subscriptions. And the companies decided we weren't making enough money, or we were losing money on the ad-free stuff. So they all moved. This is, Disney did this with Disney Plus. And then everyone started following suit. And now I think Netflix comes with ads. I believe Amazon, they just said, well, what the hell? We're not even going to ask you. Amazon Prime is now, they're going to have ads at some point. But when you watch these shows, they don't have enough ad inventory. So you start seeing the same ad over and over and over and over. Yep. And it was pretty bad during the pandemic because you're like, well, maybe they don't have the ad inventory. There's only like 3 or 4. But we're now 4 years beyond this. And I will watch a show and it's got the same 6 ads. And especially because we're streaming, we're kind of quote unquote binge watching. We're not really binge watching anymore because we're sitting and watching a sitcom and it's 30 minutes. So it feels like your old school broadcast TV. So it's not like you can't do 3 shows in an hour anymore. You have to do basically 2. But then the ads are all the same. I don't care about advertising as long as the ads are completely different throughout that program. And my son and I we're just doing a rewatch of the show Bob's Burgers, and we can almost predict what ads is going to come up basically when they do that ad break, and they're not that great, and some of the ads aren't that great, but it's just, that's what really annoys me. And so now we're going to start seeing political ads. That's going to want me to shoot my TV at some point. I think you're like, yep, you're screwed, Keith. All right. Do you have any comments or do you want me to keep going?
I think keep going. I don't have anything to add.
All right.
I mean, if I
so
another
there was,
Viking cruises-
so there was another article I saw from a guy who writes a Substack that covers this whole space, and he was talking about watching a college football game on ESPN that had the same problem, because with live broadcasting and video, with football games and sports, they've got that problem too, where they just don't have enough ad inventory. So you're either seeing house ads or you're seeing the same 5 or 6 ads over and over again. And during a football game, that's probably even worse because you're talking a 2 to 3 hour event, and then you're just recycling the ads. It's not like this, when you're watching the Super Bowl or when you're watching a football game on broadcast, they've probably sold 20 to 30 to 40 different ads for that game. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you'll see a repeat. And sometimes, for the big game like Super Bowl, you will see the same ad a couple of times because that's the intent from the marketer. But, if you had to watch a football game that had the same 5 ads every time there was a break, you'd go crazy.
Blow your brains out.
Yeah. And so this guy wrote a blog post about it, and he said he talked to some experts in the field and came up with a list of theories as what's going on. One is that the ad tech doesn't work because nearly every media company and ad tech vendor say they have built some better feature to manage things like frequency and ad break timing. In Disney's case, the company has built its proprietary tech born out of Hulu, but maybe the ad tech capabilities just aren't there yet. 2, live isn't easy, so knowing when to do a break when you're at a live event, that's a lot more difficult than when you've got a set program. ESPN is possibly using multiple third-party sellers and nobody's talking to each other. This has been a long-standing issue as TV has gone more programmatic. Even if all the ad tech works just fine, if an ESPN or another company is selling directly through private exchanges, through third parties and so on, it's possible that those parties are selling to the same brands and not looping each other in. If that's the case, well, that's a dumb excuse, according to this guy. 4, ESPN is still selling huge TV-centric sports deals, and streaming is an afterthought. That's not a bad idea or bad theory. ESPN has huge streaming commitments to make up. Let's see. This particular ESPN app experience is not a priority at the company. Senior leadership is pushing ESPN sales teams to drop prices and sell through. It's just, there's a lot of other reasons. It's just like, you got to fix this. And especially if you're going to start dumping political ads in, that's just, it's going to turn people off to that model. And I don't know if they would either give up completely, probably not, or they might actually just say, you know what, I'm sick of these ads. I got to go ad free, and I'll take the hit on the cost, on the monthly cost, because I'm starting to think about that too.
I think that's what is going to be better for consumers and better for these organizations, because you want them to pump the revenue into content and making better things.
Yeah,
ads are just a way to supplement the price of that. So I actually think that's a great outcome.
What amazes me on the live sports side of things too is like, why can't you just show the ads that you've already shown, that you're already showing on the broadcast? And I'm sure there's a technical reason. Like the broadcast network platform is completely different from the streaming one, so you probably have 2 different feeds that are going out. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know enough about live broadcasting and what that industry does either. So, but it's weird that and again, sometimes you see this when you're watching a streaming show, or if there's a live event and they don't have any ads to show, so they just pause. And you just see coming back, because like the live broadcast is showing their ads, but we don't have the rights to show those ads, or we haven't, we're not duplicating it. So instead of showing
a commercial break or something.
Yeah. And it's really weird. And, you should have fixed this by now. So who knows? All right. One last topic and then we'll wrap it up. I don't know if you saw this story, Brandon, but Microsoft rolled out AI PCs that can't play the top games. And there's no quick fix. So this is an exclusive by the Wall Street Journal. The latest Windows personal computers with AI features have the best specs on all the benchmarks. This is according to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. However, there's one problem. The chips inside the current models are incompatible with many leading video games. Microsoft and its partners this spring rolled out Copilot Plus PCs that include functions such as creating AI-generated pictures and videos. Under the hood of the new laptops is a hardware change. Instead of the Intel chips that have powered Microsoft Windows PCs for nearly 4 decades, the initial Copilot Plus PCs to hit the market use Qualcomm chips, which in turn rely on designs from UK-based ARM. Most PC games, including popular multiplayer games such as League of Legends and Fortnite, really, is League of Legends that popular? I guess it is. They're made to work with Intel's x86, a chip architecture that has been the standard for many PCs for decades. To make some of these programs function on the Qualcomm ARM system, they must be run through a layer of software that translates Intel speak into ARM speak. Chip experts say that approach is not perfect and can result in bugs, glitches, or games simply not working. The problem is widespread. About 1,300 PC games have been independently tested to see if they work on these new ARM-powered PCs, and only about half ran smoothly. This is according to James McWhirter, an analyst with research firm Omdia. He cited an independent website recommended by Microsoft to check compatibility. Many other less popular games have not yet been tested. Now, this story also says that basically gamers are power users of PCs. Chris and I have this argument all the time about like, why am I playing video games on a PlayStation or an Xbox versus a PC? They account for about 15% of laptop users and tens of billions of dollars in business each year. So, I mean, it's a big problem. Now, I did see another article that said, well, this might be an in for Apple, which made me laugh because, Apple in all of its announcements keeps going, oh, yeah, and you can play games on these and these new MacBooks. And, the gaming industries or the power users, they just shrug and laugh. So, maybe it's an inroad for Apple, but, it is a big problem, especially where else are they going to go? I guess, maybe back to an Intel chip.
I guess that's my question. Whose is it to solve? Is it the game makers to test and support the newest hardware that's coming out, given the market? Is it on Microsoft? Like, who
I don't know. I mean, if I was a game manufacturer, and then nobody, someone upgrades the computer and you can't play the game on it. And a lot of reasons you get a new PC sometimes is so that you can play these games for a lot of consumers. I don't know if they would just go back to an earlier model, or do you expect? I would expect that it's got to be both. It's got to be kind of Microsoft offering a fix as well as the game publisher. Yeah, Chris.
Hardware, that's the hardest part, right? And it's all hardware moves slow, and so there's going to be tremendous cost. Nobody's going to want to do it, and the consumer loses out and just complains about it on message boards? Yeah,
Chris, any thoughts on that? Like, because you're more of a power gamer than I am.
I think it's everyone involved.
Yeah.
The publisher, the Microsoft, just lack of communication, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. With a lot of these AI PCs, I'm not sure if the gaming, because again, if you were a gamer, sometimes you have a special hardware box that you buy. I don't know if have they come out with any of these Copilot PCs yet, or, they might not have come out with, like, so again, this might just be like a general laptop that you are looking for, like college or something like that.
Yeah, that's like taking a Google Pixel book and trying to play, the new Wukong game on
it. Or a Chromebook. Right.
Yeah, like a Chromebook. Yeah, if these laptops' intentions were to just be used for, office work or, labeled as an AI laptop, I'm not gonna bank on them being able to play the latest game on it because, for one, they look extremely. Those are extremely small, extremely thin. You're not, you got to have you have to have good cooling and stuff like that. And I don't think these would cut it just by looking at it. But if you're in a game, you're probably going to buy a gaming laptop, buy a console, or just build your own PC, which will save you, a couple $100 here or there.
Maybe I'll follow up with the PC World guys to see if those gaming hardware.
You're not going to game on these.
Like the Alienware, is that what's the big one?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. There's Alienware, there's, Asus, the ROG line, there's all sorts.
So I have one quick funny story for you before we go. And there was a tax-free holiday here in Massachusetts for a weekend in August. They're trying to use it to spur sales. And so you can go, and that's usually when we buy new computers for the family. And so my youngest daughter was like, oh, I want to get a new notebook. And that's because her birthday's that month too. So we're like, okay, well, we'll get you a computer for your birthday. But that's it. Like, and it's also like 6 other gift-giving occasions as we move forward. Just in case people think that I'm like Mr. Moneybags here. I'm not. So we go into the Best Buy, and she wanted a new MacBook. I think we got the Air. And so we're looking at all the different computer models, and the sales guy from Best Buy, he's trying to be all cool and stuff. And he goes, she's like, she doesn't care what kind I get because I'm buying it for her. And the guy goes, well, what are you going to do on this? And she's like, oh, I'm going to play some games. And he's like, oh, well, these aren't designed for games. These aren't designed for games. And I go, relax. I go, tell him what games you're going to play. And she's like, Roblox and Minecraft. And he's like, oh, okay, you'll be fine. Because those are not the high end PC game. He thought that my daughter was going to be like, playing Call of Duty on these things or some other things that take a lot of processing and memory. I'm like, no, you'll be fine with Roblox and you'll be fine with Minecraft. So don't worry about it. So
playing around online, no problems here.
That's like when we bring you'd bring grandma to the store and you buy a PC and they try to upsell you on that. You're like, no, this person's just going to use it for email and Facebook. Like, don't worry, a Chromebook will do at this point, and that's why the prices on those have come down so much too. Yep. All right, Brandon, thank you again for joining us on the show. Wonderful job, and this is your last week, so we're going to have a new guest next week, and we'll bring you back hopefully at some point, and you can chat with us and talk about the news and stuff like that. So thank you again.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
All right, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.